Welcome to What a Creep, the show with Margot Donahue and Sonia Mansfield talking about creeps from the past to the present.
This is your quick guide to the biggest creeps, jerks, assholes, and losers, the best of the worst.
From two nice ladies who want the world to be a little less creepy.
Welcome back to What a Creep. This is Margot Donahue, and my cohort in creepitude, as always, is the amazing Sonia Mansfield. Hey, Sonia.
Hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend. This is season 15 of the show.
What?
And since we do 10 episodes per season, that means we've done 150 shows about creeps.
A drop in the creepy bucket.
It is indeed a mere creepy drop in a creepy bucket. But we thank you all. If this is your first time listening to the show, welcome. We talk about creeps from the past to the present. Today, we're talking about a couple of 90s till now creeps.
Yeah.
And if you're from outside the U.S., you're going to be like, who the hell is this? But it's going to be fun because it's the Loveline dudes, Adam Carolla and Dr. Drew Pinsky.
Yes.
In the meantime, let me just let you know, if you want to follow us on social media, we do have a basic Facebook page, What a Creep, but we don't really follow it. It's just a place for people to complain about our language. We use salty language in this program, so just to warn
Fuck
you now.
Yeah. Fuck shit. Damn it.
If those sort of Tourette's-like, outbursts bother you, you may not want to listen to the show.
This may not be your show.
No. You can follow us on Twitter at CreepPod because somebody had What a Creep on Twitter for 10 years and never used it.
Fucking creep.
And we're on Instagram, What a Creep Podcast. Sonia's had some caffeine today, I think.
I have. I've had actually quite a bit.
You could send us an email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. We also have some stickers. If y'all would like some stickers, we could put that there for you. Just drop it in the mail. I'm sorry. Drop us an email. We'll put it in the mail for you. Also, it's a great place to send us suggestions for creeps and also non-creeps. Those are always the tougher ones sometimes for us to find today. Sonia, do you want to talk to them about the website?
Yes, I do. You can go to whatacreeppodcast.com and it's everything you ever wanted to know about our show, but we're afraid to ask. I don't know what you would be afraid to ask, but if you're really afraid, you could send us an email and that's fine. But it has links to almost all of our episodes because our first 4 seasons are behind the Patreon wall. There's also a link to our Patreon page. More on that in a minute. And there's a link to our merch shop where you can get t-shirts and journals and tote bags and all kinds of awesome shit that has our logo or it says, damn it, Max, or masked and vaxxed, or, all kinds of.
Maybe next year.
Yeah, maybe next year. Yeah, you froze and went away.
You froze and you made the funniest expression.
Was it like this?
Yeah, kind of like that.
Yeah, awesome. I love it when that happens.
Anyway, if you want to support this high-tech show, we have a Patreon page. Go to Patreon, look up What a Creep Podcast. We put our first 4 seasons up there. Plus, we send out 2 bonus episodes a month, and we put out a newsletter every month. And we may be doing a thing where we put it out. You could do a yearly membership. That's a new thing that they're doing on Patreon. So we'll probably start doing that on April 1st because it's going to start the 1st of the month. But you pay for ahead of time, and then you don't have to worry about it for a year. Isn't that exciting?
Yeah, it is exciting. And maybe we'll send you like an extra special treat if you do that.
If you do that. I want to thank Danita, Laura, Amy, and Corey, all of them for signing up for Patreon. We totally appreciate it. We also want to thank Rain12, a 5-star review on iTunes. Every once in a while, I'm getting a weird buzzing sound, Sonia. So.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I hope it's not on my end.
I don't know.
Hmm?
Anyway, so thank you for that. Sonia, I guess that's it. Let's get into it today. Let's talk about our creeps.
Yes, creeps. I thought maybe we could kick off the first 15th season with our first episode and do like a little undynamic duo. I couldn't think of something clever. I got nothing. Anyway, we're going to talk about Loveline creeps. That's Dr. Drew and Adam Carolla. Sources for this episode include ABC News, The Atlantic. There's a Tumblr called Calling Out Carolla.
Ooh, I gotta see that.
The Daily Beast, Jezebel, the Los Angeles Times, the New York Post, SFGate, both of their Twitter accounts. It's plenty incriminating.
Oh my God, yes.
Just go to their Twitter. Because I'm so fucking fancy, I also went to the United States Department of Justice website. That's right.
What?
That's right, everybody. That's some... No, I just linked to it. Like, I found it through another article, but I did go and I read about it. So there you go. Vulture, the Washington Post, and of course, all the Wikipedias, which I will link in our show notes. Everything is linked in our show notes. We're not just making shit up. We have sources. We source everything. People who listen to the show know I notoriously mispronounce names and
I mishmash names, but
and it is never like a cruel intentional thing.
Right.
It's just I can spell things very well. I cannot pronounce them. So Adam Carolla is a radio personality, comedian, actor, podcaster. He's also a poster boy for toxic masculinity and a bit of a misogynist creep. And then you have Dr. Drew Pinsky, and he is a doctor, addiction medicine specialist, and he's also a media personality, and he is also kind of a creep. I think he's less of a creep than Adam Carolla, and I do think there could be a road to redemption for Dr. Drew, but I'm still putting them together because he doesn't check Adam Carolla when he goes off the rails. So anyway, so these two creeps used to host a very popular syndicated radio show called Loveline. So if you're outside the United States, maybe you don't know what Loveline is. It was turned into an MTV show, and this led to all kinds of other projects for both of them. And once again, Loveline was a call-in show. Younger people mainly would call in with questions about sex and health and relationship advice. This was started before the internet, before like this kind of information and advice was everywhere. So the show was kind of a big deal to people. And back in the day, Dr. Drew was kind of like I forget which newspaper it was. I think the New York Times dubbed him the Gen X answer to Dr. Ruth.
Right.
You know,
I was just going to say Dr. Ruth was the first.
Yeah. And especially in the 90s where it was all about like safe sex and trying to educate yourself and stuff like that. Dr. Drew was a voice of reason. He's a legit doctor. So, people would call into the show. They trusted his advice for like pretty serious problems. And then Adam Carolla would be there to like be the humor, kind of a smart ass, the little bit of sugar to make the medicine go down kind of thing.
Got it.
And then eventually they both left Loveline. They did creepy things apart, but they like to creep together still. And they co-host a podcast called The Adam and Drew Show. So I'm going to start with the lesser of two creeps. And I'm going to start with Dr. Drew. David Drew. He was born a doctor. No, David Drew Pinsky was born September 4th, 1958 in Pasadena, California. His father was Morton Pinsky, and he was a doctor. And his mother was Helen Stanton, and she was a singer and actress. She did a few movies.
Oh.
I've never seen them. The Big Combo, Four Girls in Town. These were all in the 50s.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah. He's a real doctor, you guys. He went to a medical school. He went to the University of Southern California's Keck School for Medicine. He graduated in 1984. He did a residency of internal medicine at the USC County Hospital. He was a chief resident at Huntington Memorial Hospital in Pasadena and later moved into a private practice.
Wow.
So, yeah, he's legit. Like he's a legit doctor. And in 1984, when he was like just getting ready to graduate, like he was still a medical student, he started appearing on a segment on K-Rock, which is a very popular rock station in Southern California. And they had a segment called Ask a Surgeon. And like people would call in and like ask their questions. And they're on another time slot, also at K-Rock, there was Loveline, which was, I think, on Sunday nights. And yeah, people would call in and ask questions. And eventually they combined those shows. And so it was Dr. Drew and someone named Jim Poorman Trenton would co-host it. I didn't grow up in Southern California. I didn't listen then. maybe he's very cool. I have no idea. So eventually Loveline went national. It was syndicated. It was on all kinds of radio stations. I listened to it in the Bay Area on Live 105. I used to listen to it all the time. And that's when at a certain point they added Adam Carolla. And we'll talk about how he got there eventually. But yeah, syndicated. Dr. Drew was on that show from 1984 until it ended in 2016. That's a fucking long time.
Yeah. I had no idea.
I didn't either. I didn't even know it was on that long. I learned something. Once again, I will just point out he's a doctor. He's written a couple books. He wrote one called Cracked, and it's cracked putting broken lives together again. And it's about like his experience working in a drug rehab clinic in Pasadena. And he's also contributed to a book called When Painkillers Become Dangerous, What Everyone Needs to Know About OxyContin and Other Prescription Drugs. Once again, real doctor, not stupid, just makes questionable decisions. So he hosts a bunch of shows now. Like he had one on he had something called Life Changers on CW. He did Celebrity Rehab on VH1. Yeah, he did Sex Rehab with Dr. Drew and Celebrity Rehab presents Sober House. Did you watch these?
Of course I did, because I love crappy reality TV. And
so
it was sad. It was very sad. It was people like Mackenzie Phillips, people who had addiction issues. Jeff Conway was on there just before he died. Gary Busey was on there. It's just all kinds of people with these drug issues, and it's terrible. And you hope people get help, and they're getting help from it. But it's tough to treat drug addiction.
And these shows I would say they're very polarizing. Like some people said these are great shows that help other people who watch it and realize that they have their own problems. They learn from them. They learn coping skills. They realize that maybe treatment isn't just for celebrities too, stuff like this. So it definitely has that aspect, but it also, it seemed exploitive to people. Not seemed. It was exploitive too. Right. And, one season they had Heidi Fleiss and they had Tom Sizemore, and she filed domestic violence charges against him before that. So even putting them in there was that's super exploitive. And, I think they had 5 celebrity rehab people died in a span of 2 years. And, that's not Dr. Drew's fault, but it's problematic.
It's morally questionable, how much it was actually helping these people to be on camera. Because they would do things like they'd go into detox. So some of them would be vomiting and getting the chills, and then they would have really bad outbursts. And does that really help them in the long run? I think Mackenzie Phillips has said she appreciated it, it did help her, but no one knows what Gary Busey's thinking, but that hasn't changed. Not even Gary Busey, actually.
He has no idea. And he doesn't do those shows anymore. He certainly wasn't comfortable with getting the blame for people overdosing and dying. So he does not do those, but he now co-hosts podcasts with Adam. He does his own Dr. Drew podcast. He does Life with Dr. Drew, and he does one called Dr. Drew After Dark, which
no, thank you.
That sounds like an OnlyFans thing, but apparently it's a podcast. Anyway, here's a few creepy things about Dr. Drew. Dr. Drew was the voice of 1-800-GET-THIN, which was a lap band surgery company.
Oh, awesome.
They had lots of radio ads, and, they would put billboards, all this stuff. And in 2011, the FDA actually warned 1-800-GET-THIN to stop downplaying the risks of lap band surgery.
Yeah, it's serious surgery.
Yeah, and, Dr. Drew's ads were it's nothing at all. It's so easy to get a lap band surgery. And, the FDA accused them and several of their surgery centers with misleading advertising, and they just never would disclose the risk. 5 people died from that surgery.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's 5 too many. Dr. Drew's like, I have a confidentiality clause, so I can't comment on that. So, he took the money and ran. Here's where I went to the Justice Department website, because in 2012, there's this pharmaceutical company. Sorry, everybody, I stumble over words sometimes. And they're called GlaxoSmithKline.
Oh, yeah.
GSK for short. There was a $3 billion settlement. There was a federal complaint which said that this company hired Dr. Drew to talk about Wellbutrin as a sex drive booster. So here's what I'm trying to tell you. Dr. Drew was paid to talk about Wellbutrin and say it's not just for depression, it's also basically Viagra, and he would never disclose that he was being paid by
you can't
Wellbutrin, which is illegal.
Yeah.
You can't do that. So he would be on Loveline at this point is on MTV. It's on television. It's on the radio. He's making appearances and he's like, Wellbutrin is a sex drive booster. It isn't. Or I think what it was is it's not that it doesn't decrease your sex drive.
Okay.
So other antidepressants can decrease your sex drive. Wellbutrin doesn't affect it at all. Therefore, they were like, we're a sex drive booster. No, you're not. You just might be in a better mood now and want to get laid. That's all it means. Anyway, he would go on his shows and be like, it's a sex drive booster. It isn't. And they had to pay a $3 billion settlement over it.
Shit.
Yeah. By the way, one time he went on Loveline and said that Wellbutrin can make women multi-orgasmic.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Yeah.
Sure it does,
No
Dr.
technique
Drew.
involved, right? Just the
No, none at all. Yeah, you could just take the pill actually and just fucking lay around and it'll just come to you. Get it? Come to you. See what I did there? Okay, in 2014 episode of Loveline, a man called in and he mentioned his fiance feels pain during sex because she has endometriosis.
Damn it! I know how it's pronounced, but now I
know how to pronounce it, but it's stumbling when it comes out of my mouth, and I'm really sorry, everybody. I know. Timosis.
Andreotymosis.
Yeah.
Valerie Bertinelli's character had that on One Day at a Time.
I totally don't remember this, but I believe you.
Yes, God damn it, I can't say it now.
Endometriosis. Anti-disestablishmentarian. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
God damn it, I know how it's pronounced. and I can't ask Alexa because I can't say it.
So this woman, she had supercalifragilistic endometriosis. Don't cut any of this out.
No, sorry. Sorry. My sister had this. I mean,
I'm like, it's a real thing. So Dr. Drew referred to this diagnosis. I'm going to skip the word, just go right to diagnosis as a garbage bag disorder and suggested that she wasn't really sick and that it's just a thing like women say and that actually she was like sexually abused and that's why it's all in her head. Basically is what he was saying. I'm like, not cool. And I think what this is representative of, and we're going to talk more about this, is Dr. Drew is someone who diagnoses people from a distance.
We talked about this.
Yes. So we talked about this a little bit when we did our Oprah Creeps and we talked about Dr. Phil. And Dr. Phil loves to diagnose celebrities without ever actually talking to them. You might remember he did actually talk to Britney Spears, but then proceeded to like go on the media and like pretend he was her doctor. He wasn't. Dr. Drew is often brought on to talk shows or news programs, and he diagnoses people without actually interacting with them, which it's one thing to do it on Loveline. For example, the man who calls in and says, you know, my girlfriend feels pain during sex and he offers his like bullshit diagnosis. that's one thing. This is a person calling in. It's another to like go on CNN and speculate about people's mental health or their physical well-being.
Endometriosis. Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Margot.
Sorry.
Don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. We said it at the top of the show.
Okay.
I'm going to mispronounce
Jinxed
things.
us. Sorry.
Okay. So he does this a lot. So like I said, you'll see him on various programs speculating about people's medical and psychological issues. So in August 2016, Dr. Drew is on one of his shows and he decided to start questioning the health of Hillary Clinton, which, by the way, this was a Trump Giuliani thing. Like disgraced former president Donald Trump was starting all these, had all these talking points where it was like, she's in mental decline. She had a stroke. She had this. She had that. Dr. Drew basically starts repeating these talking points on his show. And he is a doctor. So he looks like he knows what he's talking about. People start believing what he's saying. He even like incorrectly reported from a strong source, and I'm going to put that shit in quotes, that Clinton was having problems from a brain injury. Like, it's all fucking made up. It's just made up. And like, do better, Dr. Drew. Just do fucking better, you know? And then once it like, and then he starts, then COVID-19 comes once again. And we have all these people who they look to Dr. Drew. They think he's, you know, because he is a real doctor. And he's just like, you know, it's the flu.
Okay. I heard him do that, Sonia.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was on K-Rock. K-Rock had lost the morning show, but he used to call in once a week because I used to listen online. He had his libertarian talking points that he'd like to give. He was on the rush. He was on Trump's council and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Anyway, when they were bringing this up, one of the hosts turned out to have COVID, but she had it in January or like late January, early February, before everybody knew what it was. And she was out for a week and she was describing the symptoms. And he was just sort of like, oh, you just had a bad flu. And she's like, no, I was really, really sick. And then a few weeks later, it was like, 2 years ago, just before we were all shut down. He's like, it's just the flu. Why is everybody freaking out? He just was so angry about it.
Yeah.
And then like 2 days later, we were shut down. It was ridiculous. Anyway, continue.
He called it a press-induced panic.
Yep.
It's just, it's just a flu. Your chances of dying from the disease are less than being hit by an asteroid, is what he was telling people. Like, not helpful, Dr. Drew.
No, and lots of things are less likely than a hit by an asteroid. It doesn't mean you don't look out for it. I mean,
yeah. It's like, shut up. So, I'm like, after being called out for being Dr. Stupid, Dr. Drew apologized. People had told them to listen to the CDC and Dr. Fauci and all this stuff. And then I just wanted to say that in December 2020, Dr. Drew himself got COVID. And yeah, it probably really fucking sucked. So he doesn't say like it's just a flu, but he still is like, why are we shutting down schools? Why do we have mask mandates in school? That kind of bullshit, which as a parent with a child in school makes me super angry. He currently co-hosts a podcast with Adam Carolla. He rarely confronts Carolla when he's wrong. Not saying anything is condoning it when you're on a show like that, I think.
It's giving it consent.
Yes. And when you go to his Twitter, which is linked in the show notes, he's constantly retweeting things that are questionable at best about COVID and things like that. And politics, which, by the way, I'm like, why is Dr. Drew talking about politics? Whatever. And I think when you're a blue check mark on Twitter, like retweeting without comment is agreement.
Yes.
And he's amplifying misinformation and dangerous rhetoric. And I think Dr. Drew needs to do better. I think he's a fucking creep and he needs to do better. And that bums me out because I loved Loveline.
Yeah.
And I love Dr. Drew. And I used to go to Live 105's like summer concerts. And one year Dr. Drew was there and he was so handsome. He's so handsome in person. I was like, oh my God, hey, Dr. Drew. Ooh, like,
the vapors.
You give me the video. Ooh,
do you remember? He used to do a thing where if young women called in and they had kind of a baby voice,
Yes.
he would say, "I bet you were molested," and then he could figure out when you were molested, coming
yes.
from your voice, how young you sound in your voice.
Yes.
And he just said it like there's no big deal to that.
Yeah. And then he, at one point, so he used to say it like that. And then he changed it to, how old were you when your dad left?
Ugh.
And here's the thing. So women would call and be like, hi, Dr. Drew, I'm calling about blah, 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 blah. And
My
then,
endometriosis.
yes, about my supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. He would say, how old were you when your father left? And most of the time he was right. I will say, like, they'd say 4 or 5, so, but yeah, it's a shitty thing to do. It's still, yeah, exactly. He never did shit like that to the men. And yeah, Loveline was still, in ways it was progressive, but in other ways it was still sexist and I say a little homophobic too. Because he had a lot of theories about gay sex and how anal sex shouldn't be done at all, and
which means
it's like, and I'm like, whatever, dude. Like,
he also, from what I understand, at the ABA, which was a book association, when he had a book that he was promoting about his life, his wife had triplets. And so he was promoting this book about being a family man, and he was at this convention in New York. He was published by the same people who published Jenna Jameson's book, Make Love Like a Porn Star. Mm-hmm. And he was supposed to be doing press interviews, and he was basically just talking to her the whole time. So.
Maybe he liked her.
Pretty lady, maybe.
Maybe. I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, I know that he would just do anything for a buck because I worked in healthcare PR when I first started working in New York. And he was one of the ones that, there'd be a campaign for a certain kind of drug, and they would do it was like a, should you get therapy or not get therapy? And they had the cast of Family of 5. That was the name of the show, where the kids it was 5 kids and their parents died.
Oh, Party of 5.
Party of 5, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
The cast from there on the stage, and he was just talking about therapy with them, and he was paid like $25,000 or something like that. Mm-hmm. So, and then it was just sort of passed around like, yeah, he'll do anything for a buck.
He really will.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty obvious he takes money from drug companies and doesn't disclose that he's done that, and then recommends those drugs on different platforms. And it's like
big rules against that. Yeah.
Yes. It's problematic as fuck.
Right.
So, but I do think Dr. Drew could do better.
Absolutely, he can.
Yeah, he just chooses not to, which makes him a creep in my book. Yeah. So now let's talk about the bigger creep, and that's Adam Carolla.
Shit.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break, and we'll go into Carolla.
Okay. I didn't list every creepy thing that Adam Carolla's ever said, because then the show would never fucking end. So let's start at the beginning though. Adam Carolla was born May 27th, 1964. His parents were Jim and Chris Carolla. He was raised in North Hollywood in Los Angeles. He attended North Hollywood High School. He did not receive his high school diploma for years because it was held by the school until he paid off a library fine. I only mention this because he mentioned it all the fucking time.
He repeats himself.
Yes. And then finally, on like one of his rando shows, he like went to the school, paid the fine, and got his diploma. I'm like, whatever. He mentions a lot of this stuff all the time, by the way, if you listen to his shows. He began living on his own at age 18, and he worked a series of jobs. He worked as a carpet cleaner, a carpenter, a boxing instructor, and a traffic school instructor. I will say this, and we don't want to look shame people, but I think Adam Carolla has the face of a boxing instructor. You know what I mean? Sorry, not sorry.
Some women have a big crush on him, I have to say.
I remember
get
that.
At the time, yeah.
Don't get it. In the early 90s, he studied improv with the Groundlings and was a member of the Acme comedy troupe. And I did not know that at all. In 94, he was working as a boxing trainer, and he was helping some dude named Jimmy Kimmel prepare for a fight that was being staged by K-Rock. Mm-hmm. Once again, we're back to K-Rock. Jimmy was a regular on Kevin and Bean.
Yep.
Was that a morning show?
That was the
Was it
show
a
I
morning
listened to. Yeah, for 30
Okay.
years. Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't listen for 30 years, but it was on the air
Yes.
for like forever. And then they got
Okay.
canceled. Yeah.
Okay. So Kimmel was a regular on the show. I guess then he was like Jimmy the sports guy or something like that. Jimmy Kimmel and Carolla became friends, and then they became business partners. And this actually helped Adam Carolla get a reoccurring role on Kevin and Bean. So this is kind of where he starts
They
to
need
take
another
off.
white guy.
Yeah, like, right. We've only got like 3 or 4 white guys here. We need one more white guy
around the same age as us with the same opinion. Okay.
Yes. Perfect. So he joins Kevin and Bean, and this what leads him to Dr. Drew and Loveline, which is also on K-Rock. And he was on that show from 95 to 2005. And he was on the MTV show. I guess that was on for 4 seasons. So 96 to 2000. And so if you listen to Loveline on the regular, you knew he was kind of creepy. Like it starts to come out that he's creepy. Like he just, he was pretty rude to people. He talked down to people. He treated every caller like they were an idiot. It got very frustrating. In late 2003, he was on the air when he referred to, he said that Hawaiians are dumb and inbred and dropped the R word when talking about them. And said, and
that's his problem.
Hawaiians. I was like, that's where you're gonna fucking go. The most delightful people who live,
the nicest, most beautiful people
who live in Hawaii. They live in fucking paradise. Like jealous much? He quote, the dumbest people we have is what he said about Hawaiians. And I was like, whatever. He's such an asshole. And Hawaii was like, hey, fuck you. And they canceled. Loveline was not available in Hawaii anymore after that. And I was like, the rest of the states should have followed suit on that one. He was the co-host and co-creator of The Man Show. And there was also one called Crank Yankers. Mm-hmm. Those are both with Kimmel. Did you watch either of those?
The Man Show I've seen a few times, I will admit. Crank Yankers, I always just found it annoying because I just didn't feel like you needed to animate that stuff with puppets. Like you didn't need to. But see, people loved it. People did love it. I have to say, Sarah Silverman was on there.
Yeah.
I think Patton Oswalt. I mean, they had an interesting group of people. It's just funny because I read a story about puppeteering recently. And there's like this whole subgroup of people who do that for a living. And they handle the puppets as the actors talk. And they were just talking about people who were assholes, like Kevin Clash, who does Elmo. There's certain people. And I wondered if Adam Carolla was like an asshole to deal with or not.
I'm sure he was.
I don't know.
I'm sure he was.
Yeah.
I probably saw an episode of Crank Yankers and was like, well, that's not for me. I maybe watched 1 or 2 episodes of The Man Show. It was for men. It wasn't for me. It was for men and for women who are like pick-me girls, right?
Exactly.
Like I'm a cool girl and I love The Man Show, like that sort of thing. And if you don't know what The Man Show is, you're so lucky. It's pretty gross. It was an entire show that they created to make fun of women, basically. It was sexist, it was racist, it was transphobic, and it was this idea that this was like supposedly what men wanted to see on TV. So it was like women jumping on I think they called them girls, actually. Girls jumping on trampolines, and there was like monkeys and like lots of jokes about little people and
Jimmy Blackface.
Yeah, is not good. And Adam Carolla did a bunch of other shows that I'm not going to list them because who cares and no one watched them anyway. So Jimmy Kimmel has like moved on, and like we have talked about Jimmy Kimmel in like I think one of our Comedy Creeps episodes. Not that he was a creep, but this is somebody who's made a road to redemption. Here is someone who learned something.
He grew up.
And he grew up. That's exactly what I wrote in my notes. I was like, Jimmy Kimmel fucking grew up. Like he learned something.
Adults. Yeah.
Yes. And he admits it. Like when confronted, Jimmy Kimmel's like, I cringe when I watch those things. I grew up. Like I was wrong.
Right.
Like, and we've talked about this on the show before. Like for some people, admitting that you were wrong is like the worst thing you could do.
Right. It shows weakness. Like I said at the top of the show, like I mess up words sometimes. So people like, don't say that because then it makes us think like we're making the whole thing up. No, we're not making the whole fucking thing up, you know?
No.
And saying that you did something you thought was hilarious in 1997 and now you go, oh, that's why I shouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
It's racist as fuck. It's not okay. I won't do it again. And I won't. Yeah. Yeah. And I won't applaud people who do it. I will. You know, yeah. But they bring it out all the time when they want to get back at Jimmy Kimmel for saying something about against Trump or something.
Yes.
They always love to put that back on there. Yeah.
And he takes it like a grown up.
Like a grown up.
And and that's awesome. And Adam Carolla is the opposite of that. Like he continues to like double down on his own ignorance and toxic masculinity. And that's it. I mean, he literally wrote a book called In 50 Years We'll All Be Chicks and Other Complaints from an Angry Middle-Aged White Guy. You would think that like it's literally like the book on I'm a white guy douchebag and I'm not going to change, and kids these days, and
we didn't wear helmets when we were kids. We rode our bikes without helmets. I'm like, no, we needed fucking helmets. They just didn't care enough about us to do anything
Adam
about it.
Adam Carolla should have been wearing a fucking helmet. Let me just say, such an asshole. So in October 2005, Howard Stern was making his switch to satellite radio, and Adam Carolla was going to be like the new Howard Stern. He did a syndicated morning show. He did it for 3 years. And then it was canceled. And now he does podcasting where he acts like a dick most of the time. On one of his podcast episodes, someone mentioned transgender people. And he said, when did we start giving a shit about these people? Yeah, he sucks. He also said, this is a quote, Superman doesn't flap his arms to fly because that'd be gay. I'm like, gay is the insult, right? Get it? Because it's so terrible to be gay. That's the worst thing ever. He drops gay slurs all the time. I have a link to calling out Carolla in the show notes. It's just lists and lists and lists of him saying fucked up homophobic things for years. He recently did an interview with Tucker Carlson.
Of course he
did. That's a red flag right there. He's on these shows on the reg, by the way. And he's very obsessed with cancel culture.
Of course, is.
So quote, it's destroying free speech and killing comedy. Really? Because I just watched the Ali Wong special and it's fucking funny as hell. Like, fuck off. He's lazy. Yeah. He's so lazy. So,
and Jimmy Kimmel's doing really well, by the way.
Yeah. Exactly. Like it's killing your kind of comedy, the kind that's fucking racist, homophobic, sexist, punching down. Mm-hmm. But smart people move on. Patton Oswalt's moved on. He's such an asshole. Yeah. He actually is so shitty about quote unquote cancel culture, so shitty about there being consequences for the things he says, that he created and he released a documentary called No Safe Spaces.
Do you remember when I got the pitch for that? I sent you the email.
Yes, and we were like, "Is this a fucking joke?"
Is this because Megyn Kelly was their big like supporter? That was like no film reviewers. It was just Megyn Kelly.
Yes, Megyn Kelly, fucking Tim Allen. Yes. You know, it's like whatever. It's a documentary about political correctness at universities. You know, and it's about how, quote unquote, social justice warriors have made universities the most dangerous place in America.
He's the person that saw PCU and just took it too seriously.
He's such, you know what the real problem is at universities? Sexual assault.
Yeah.
That's the real problem at university. Fuck off with your political correctness.
No, it's actually white men being the gatekeepers of information and who gets tenure and who doesn't. And it's being too damn expensive. It is also, let's be clear, it's a time you should be hearing different kinds of points of view, and it will be over the top because you're young. Yes. And it's just going to be a loud experience. But it depends where you go to school, too. I mean, Berkeley's different from San Jose State, where I went. Like, there was no of anything there. Yeah.
He's just such a
bullshit. Him and Dennis.
Totally.
What was the person, Dennis? What's his face? Was his...
Dennis Miller?
No, not Dennis Miller. He's the guy.
Oh, Dennis Prager.
Prager. God, what a cheesehead he is.
Yeah. Oh, he sucks too. Yeah, he sucks. When asked about his political stance, he says that he would say he was libertarian, but then he's like, I guess I would say I'm Republican. He's like, I want a secure border. These are all fucking buzzwords. Like, these are all dog whistles.
Yes.
Secure border. I'm not into the welfare state. I'm not into freebie lunch programs.
Oh, those freebie lunch programs that cost so much.
He says it demeans people.
Oh, that's.
Do you know what? Fuck people who aren't for like lunch programs.
Fuck you for shitting on poor people, by the way.
Yes,
for
exactly.
shaming them further.
Oh, that's one of the. Yes, I didn't even put this in the notes. This is one of the things I hate about Adam Carolla. I hate so many things about Adam Carolla.
And I'll contribute too, because I used to listen to him, and then
he's a bootstraps guy. Pick yourself up by your bootstraps and blah, blah, blah. I had to struggle, so now you have to struggle too. It's fuck these people.
He claims he had the same struggle as other people who grow up in, environments where there's racism and poverty. He thinks he has the same thing. And he's a fucking ridiculous.
He is. And it's like, the idea that you would be against free lunches for kids.
How much could that possibly cost, by the way?
Also,
come on.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Let these kids have their fucking lunch so that they can do their work. Have you ever been hangry, Adam Carolla?
I say this, I'm crazier. I say give all kids free lunch. What's the big deal?
Yeah. Yes. It should be part. It should be part of the school thing. And they all get lunch, a healthy meal. Yes. Seriously. It's just, these
if your
are
mom
all
wants to bring you something fine, but everybody else, if you want.
Would my son eat the school lunch? No, he wouldn't. He's like, no, I want to eat the same thing every day.
Like most of us, we would just get that big plate of the tater tots. Do you remember tater tot day?
Yes.
That was like the best day ever.
Oh my God. My school lost their shit on Fridays because that was pizza day, man.
Pizza day. With the ranch, right? The ranch dressing. You had to get that to dip it in there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's pizza day, man. My son, by the way, would not. He wants his chicken nuggets and his Ritz crackers. That's all he wants. But it's fine. He's got it. But other kids should have their free lunch if they want. He's trash. Adam Carolla hosted a weekly segment on Bill O'Reilly's show.
When was this?
It was called Rollin' with Carolla.
Oh.
Rollin' with Carolla. I'm over here doing the dance. Rollin'
intellectually lazier douchebags.
Yes.
Bill Maher and Adam Carolla.
Yes. They're so... Look, I don't even have anything to add here other than that's a stupid fucking name for your segment and you associate with Bill O'Reilly. Fuck off.
And
you're
also
a creep.
Black culture. That's like trying to
Yes. Rolling with Carolla.
Fucking idiot.
Yeah, I know. So, speaking of creeps who shows he loves to go on, he also loves to now he goes on Sean Hannity's show all the time. And first of all, ew. Second, he recently said, here's a quick thought. I love when things start out like this. Yeah. Here's a quick thought. If AOC was fat and in her 60s, would anyone listen to another thing she ever said? And her opinions are idiotic 85% of the time.
Would you pick on her if she were not so pretty?
Right.
Because she would never fuck you. She wouldn't look twice at you. Right.
They're obsessed with her. Yeah. Why are you so obsessed with me? They are so obsessed with her on Hannity and Tucker Carlson. And it's because she knows you're stupid and you're gross. And she would never fuck you.
And
never.
She's hot. She was a bartender. She's from Queens. Yeah.
And she's smart as fuck. I don't fuck Adam Carolla for even suggesting she isn't. And now his whole thing, of course, is COVID stuff. So, he tweeted out one time, turns out the people dying from COVID are old or sick or both. How many of you pussies got played? And who's going to get played next time? And people were like, you're an asshole. And he's like, I'm never going to apologize for this. And, he talks about like the risk versus the reward. And these are the things that drive me nuts because it's, Yeah, fuck old people and sick people. That's what they get for being old and sick. You just have to die of COVID because of my freedom. Ugh. Most recently, he was in the news because some schools are dropping their mask mandates now. I'm in San Francisco. It's like you don't have to wear a mask if you don't want to. My kid is still wearing his mask because he's totally fine with it. He recently said the Los Angeles Unified School District, they're continuing their mask mandate. And he said that that's crate training for children. I'm going to put that in quotes, crate training. You know, he just loves to spread conspiracy theories. He's doing the one that President Biden's in mental decline and that VP Kamala Harris is the worst person I've ever heard speaking into a microphone. She is only VP because of affirmative action.
Oh, for God's sakes.
I'm like, he's such a fucking asshole.
He hates women.
He does. Speaking of, women aren't funny.
Yes, go for it.
That's one of his things. Like Jerry Lewis, women aren't funny. So an interviewer asked him once, do you hate working with women? And he said, no, but they make you hire a certain number of chicks. He said chicks. Mm-hmm. They make you hire a certain number of chicks, and they're always the least funny on the writing staff. The reason you know more funny dudes than funny chicks is that dudes are funnier than chicks. If my daughter has a mediocre sense of humor, I'm just going to tell her you should be a staff writer for a sitcom because they have to hire you and they can't fire you. It'll be awesome.
Oh my God. If you look at all by the way, the top shows now, written and directed and produced by women.
Yeah.
Ted Lasso, written by Black women, by the way.
Yeah. Let's all take career advice from Adam Carolla in his shitty poor man's Joe Rogan podcast. Fuck this guy. I'll just wrap it up here with he does live shows sometimes, and one of the people he does live shows with is, here's another name I'm gonna fuck up, Milo Yiannopoulos.
He's a fucking Nazi, so fuck him.
Yeah, seriously, fuck him. He has Donald Trump Jr. on the show all the time, and Ben Shapiro. And if you think, well, having them on the show isn't creepy, you're wrong. When you give creeps a platform unchecked, you're a fucking creep.
Yeah, you're not putting a light on it. You're letting them out. You're letting the words out.
And Bill Maher does this shit all the time. He has fucking Milo and Ann Coulter.
Yeah.
All the time.
They laugh at his stupid joke, so he lets them talk and talk and talk.
Yes. And then he doesn't check them. He doesn't correct them. And I'm like, Bill Maher's a fucking creep. We did an episode on Bill Maher.
Yes, we did.
And I think I tweet it out like once a week. I go, here's your weekly reminder that Bill Maher is a fucking creep. The liberals don't love him. We hate him. Y'all can have him.
Yes.
And take Adam Carolla with you. So that's our creeps, Adam Carolla and Dr. Drew.
Great job, Sonia. I want to tell you, I used to listen to Adam's podcast because I was one of the first people to listen to I listened to podcasts like over 10 years ago. That was new.
Yeah.
And he had funny people on from time to time, but he's got a very monotone voice and he repeats himself all the time. All the time. He says something over and over again. And one of the things he used to say over and over again, and finally he's like, I love it when these women who say that they're rape survivors or cancer survivors, they won't call themselves victims. I just think that's hilarious. I'm not a victim, I'm a survivor. He's going after people who've been raped and people who've had cancer.
What the fuck?
and shitting on the words they use to describe their journey, which, by the way, if they're alive, they survived it. Asshole. Yeah.
He's such an asshole.
Such a shit.
First, why do you fucking care what they call themselves? How does that impact your life at all? It doesn't. He just wants to shit on them.
He wants to shit on things, and then that just makes him edgy. And it makes him
he's so edgy
because he's just spitting out shit from his head.
I'm just asking questions. Fuck you.
Oh, he doesn't ask questions. He just says he knows everything. He's very condescending.
I hate him.
And he's just a real piece of trash. And if you follow him on Twitter, I mean, he's just the worst.
No, he's the worst. And the idea that he would be like, women aren't funny. It's like, really? Because all these women seem to be doing really well, and you're fucking doing Dancing with the Stars and fucking Celebrity Apprentice and shit. Like,
Yeah, well, he loves
don't
Trump.
don't take your advice from Adam Carolla
He would,
or Dr. Drew. To be honest,
yeah.
don't take your advice from Dr. Drew.
he used to talk when he was on Dancing with the Stars. He did like these comedy segments, and I'm doing that in air quotes.
Yeah,
And my parents watched Dancing with the Stars, and they would be like, "Who's this guy? He's so unfunny. He slows everything down." I'm like, Adam Carolla, he sucks. He would complain about the gig because they never used his really great ideas. And I'm like, oh, for fuck. So he would describe his really great idea, which was stupid. And just, it's just like,
he sucks.
he's a sucky man, baby. Okay.
Yes, that's a perfect way to describe him. He's a sucky man baby.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about somebody who's not a sucky man, baby?
Please, I can't wait.
I had a few ideas, but I'm going to stick with this one because this is a book I just read this week. It's an entertainer, and her name is Sarah Polley. She's born. Love her. She's an actor, writer, director, producer, and she's a political activist. She was born January 8th, 1979. She was born in Toronto. She lives in Toronto with her husband and her 3 kids. She grew up in an family acting environment. She started in Ramona, in a TV series, Ramona, and then she moved on to Road to Avonlea. That was like a big starring role for her. Her mother died when she was 11 or 12 years old, and the producers on the show used that as experience for her to have her character's mother die and then act on camera about being sad about her mother dying out. So she was in The Sweet Hereafter, The Weight of Water, My Life Without Me, Dawn of the Dead, 2004, Go, we were talking about.
Yeah.
She's done a lot of movies, and she was considered like the Princess of Canada. She did all these independent films. And a few years ago, when Harvey Weinstein was being talked about in the media, she did an op-ed piece for the New York Times, one thing you can read without wanting to poke your fucking eyes out with your thumbs. Today, the Times is talking about free speech, and boy, they're really worried about it.
Oh, fuck you. New York Times. I need to cancel my subscription to the New York Times.
Or just, I can't. Yeah.
By the way, they make it really hard to cancel your subscription too.
Her first documentary film was Stories We Tell. It was about her mother, like I said, who passed away when she was young. She wrote Alias Grace, which is based on the Margaret Atwood novels. She wrote to Margaret Atwood when she was 17 and said, "I'd like to write and produce this series." And Atwood said, "Maybe wait a few years and then see if you want to do it." 20 years later, she did.
That's amazing.
She's amazing. But anyway, when this op-ed piece, she talked about being in show business, and that being a woman on a TV set, movie set in the 90s, 80s and 90s when she started, you're the only woman. There's just men everywhere, and how you're just treated like crap. And it's the guys have their guy humor, and if there's any woman on the set, they treat her like she's a sex object, or it's just a very depressing thing that she had an experience where she was taken to lunch with Harvey Weinstein, and then she was going there with her publicist, and then they said, "Oh, they want to move it to his hotel room." And so her publicist said, "I'm going to stay right by your side. Don't worry."
That you even have to do that is...
Yeah. And he basically was sort of explaining to her, like, these are all the films I want to do with Miramax. I'd like for you to come on board. What are you willing to do for your career? With this publicist there.
Gross.
Just trying to see how ambitious she is. And women, if you say no, you're a bitch. If you say yes, you're an asshole. I mean, it's like all these things.
Yeah.
But she was just talking about, like, he's just one person of many. She could have had an awesome movie career because she's super talented. And she's like, fuck this. I'm going to make my own movies.
Good for her.
When she was a teenager, we talked about Jian Ghomeshi. He was a Canadian broadcaster accused of sexual assault and abuse by many, many, many women. And when his trial was happening, people were saying, "Where's Sarah Polley?" Because she used to be friends with him. Didn't she have a thing with him? And she had an incident with him when she was 16 and he was 28, where they were having sex, and then he got violent, and she basically kind of ran out of the apartment as fast as she could. And this was a guy, she liked his band. He was in Moxie Frusis. I told you that. He was in a band before he did this. She was a fan of his, like, for years. He knew her since she was 12. and he did this to her. And people asked, why didn't she go to the police? And she explains why she didn't go to the police at the time. And then they said, when he was on trial, why didn't you go to the police? And she just said, everybody advised her not to because, and it turned out to be all the women were treated like garbage by the judge too, by the way, not just by his attorney, which I expect. They're just being a defense attorney. I mean, that's shitty.
Yeah. By the way, the sweet, sweet rape fame that everyone thinks women want, they don't want.
They don't want it. No. And she didn't, and she was the mother of like 2 very small kids at the time.
Yeah.
And anyway, one of her, the book is called Run Towards the Danger. What happened was that like 10 or 15 years ago.
Gosh, that's a really good title, by the way.
Yeah. And so here's the thing. She was cleaning something in her house in the closet, and a very heavy fire extinguisher fell on her head.
Oh my gosh.
It gave her a concussion. And she had a head injury, and it completely changed her life. She all of a sudden was very sensitive to sound and light. She couldn't multitask. She couldn't like go to concerts or go to anything. And she had 2 kids at the time. Kids are noisy. They're
so loud.
They're so fucking loud. That's all they are.
Yeah.
And it changed her life and her career. And she went to all these different specialists. And finally she went to one who said, from now on, face everything. If it's loud and it's going to like make you upset, do it anyway, because you'll just have to train your brain again. And so running towards the danger for her is like going to situations that she knew was going to probably even make her sick. But eventually now she's much better. She can do things. She can multitask. She can do these things. She's directing again, which is awesome. And
so good.
So these essays are all about running towards the danger. And the danger for her in this essay was about talking about Gian, what happened to her and why she didn't, and then her regrets about it. And it's so eloquent. But she also talks about many things. She's a fantastic writer. Like I said, she wrote Alias Grace. She's just so talented. So that's our not creep this week, Sarah Polly.
Such a good pick.
Follow her.
Such a good pick. Yeah.
Follow her.
Yeah. I'm writing it down.
Yeah. She's on Instagram. I think it's at Sarah. It's Sarah with an H, Polly, Polley. I think it's I am Sarah Polly on Instagram, but follow her, watch her films, support her work. She's really, really amazing. She's very political. She used to go to a lot of protests and things like that because she had the head injury. But she's just really cool. She takes her pain,
let's move.
Promote somebody awesome.
Yes. And let's move Go up the list. We'll do that one soon.
Yes, we need to do Go for dorking out. So if you like the sound of our voices, let's make that segue.
Ooh.
We co-host a show called Dorking Out, where we dork out about movies. And Sonia, what are we talking about next?
We still have Brendan Fraser on the brain. So we're going to talk about The Mummy, which I have always really enjoyed. So I'm looking forward to that rewatch. It's going to be really fun.
Too. I'm so freaking excited. Thank you so much for listening to this show. Follow us on all the social medias if you have ideas for creeps and non-creeps. We love it when you use the Annie Potts gift. We got one from Ghostbusters, or just pick something for yourselves, or just send it in an email. That's cool. whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. If you could leave us a few stars and a nice review in iTunes, or Spotify now takes ratings.
Yes.
So if you listen to us on Spotify, if you wouldn't mind doing that. If you want to join Patreon, we do put out bonus episodes. And but if you can't afford it, just send us an email. We'll send you some stickers in the mail. Put it on your laptop, go to the coffee shop, or just tell a friend about the show. That's how a lot of people find us.
It's true.
All of our
we get a lot of referrals.
Yes.
We love our cohort.
So
good.
Where
yes.
do people find you?
You can find me at thesoniashow.com on Twitter and Instagram. My website is thesoniashow.com. I already said that. I'm also on TikTok. Where can people find you, Margot?
You can find me at Brooklyn Fit Chick, really for Twitter and Instagram. I'm going to delete that Facebook page. Sorry if you checked me out there. I haven't put anything there in years, literally. I also have a site. It's brooklynfitchick.com, and I am on the TikTok at my name, Margot Donahue. I post a lot about my cats there, just so you know. But I have the
they're
cutest
so cute.
cats in Brooklyn.
It's true.
Natural fact.
It is actual fact. It's not even up for debate.
Nope. In the meantime, everybody, be safe, be good. Don't be a creep.
Creep.
Thank you for listening to us talk about creeps. You can follow us at What a Creep Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
But don't follow us too closely.
You can email us your creepy stories at whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com.
But please keep your dick pics to yourself.